Welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast, a Su Madre production.
All right, welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast. This is a special episode. When I woke up this morning, I didn't know just how special it would be because I hadn't read the story. So I read the story today. We're here to talk about a novella. I'm going to call it a novella, maybe, by Arthur C. Clarke. It's called A Meeting with Medusa. It appears at the end of the episode. It appears at the end of the book, The Wind from the Sun, which is a collection of short stories. And because it is so long, we decided to do our one whole episode just about A Meeting with Medusa. We did this previously with The Road to the Sea, which is another very long short story. And we also watched a movie. So we're going to discuss this short story and the movie. And my co-host is
Amy.
Amy's here with me. She read the story and watched the movie. What's your initial reaction to this story, Amy?
I'd say that this length of story, Clarke knocks it out of the park every time. I
agree.
Yeah.
I remember the one that I read with Heather, An Expedition to Earth, was called Breaking Strain, and
It
was about 30 pages, and it was amazing. It was really good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as, far out there sci-fi. It was more psychological about two people on a spaceship running out of oxygen. And this is, really amazing. I love stuff that takes place in our solar system, but that's that could be there. If we penetrated Jupiter ever, you never know what you're going to find because we don't know what's there. So I remember when it started, the first section, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be boring.
Agreed. I was like, what are we getting ourselves into?
Yeah. It's about a futuristic, a hover ship type thing, hot air balloon thing.
Yeah, dirigible, a blimp.
Right.
Yeah.
And he references the Hindenburg pretty often, which happened only 30 years prior to writing the story. But then everything after that, but I mean, that part wasn't poorly written or anything. I remember the moment when he comes face to face with the monkey.
Oh, yeah.
With the chimp was pretty intense. And then, this story was, really, really amazing.
Yeah.
It almost rivals 2001 in just everything about it. It's so multi-layered. Not just, what it's about a guy basically exploring Jupiter.
Yes.
Very simple version is that it's about the first manned exploration of the, under the first layer of the atmosphere of Jupiter, which we've never in real life ever explored. And in the story, it was the first time. So that alone is awesome to just see what he sees. But then the full circle of him and even how his encounter with the chimp comes up later in the story.
Yeah.
And this story, I don't know how well you remember Source Code, the movie.
I keep wanting to rewatch it. I don't remember it very well. You keep bringing it up, and I'm like, I gotta see that one again.
If I had known that this story was like this, I would have suggested we watch Source Code or the new RoboCop. The remake of RoboCop that came out in 2014, I think, is so good.
Yeah.
And it's because of this whole man and machine combining,
right? And
what that does to your what that and with Source Code, I'm gonna ruin it. I know you've read or seen it, but if you haven't seen Source Code, stop listening and just go watch because it's in my opinion, one of the best science fiction films. Certainly one of the best modern science fiction films. Has nothing to do with space, but it is amazing because at the end you find out that Jake Gyllenhaal, who was doing a Groundhog Day type thing where he's going back in time and reliving 8 minutes of one man's life on a train that gets blown up by a terrorist. So he keeps reliving the 8 minutes, and you can do it as many times as you want just to find out where the bomb was and find out who put the bomb there.
Right.
And at the end of the story, throughout the movie, he's in a thing like when he's not in the simulation,
Yeah.
he's in this like sphere.
Yeah.
And he's talking to a voice, and you see the voice outside. It's a woman, Vera Farmiga.
Mm-hmm.
But what this movie does so well is that you don't find out until the end, through clever camera techniques, that she is not looking at him on a screen. She's reading what he says on a screen in text.
Right.
But they never tell you that until
Right.
like the last scene.
Right.
So you just assume when he's like looking in a certain direction talking,
Mm-hmm.
because he can see her face like it's a camera screen.
Right.
But when she's looking at her monitor, but they never show her monitor.
Yeah.
So the whole thing at the end is that he's actually like half of a body
Yeah.
hooked up to machines in his brain, hooked up to this computer, the source code, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just this story plants all those seeds of like, why can't he laugh?
Right.
Why, like, what about his fingers? There was something about his fingers, I remember.
Right.
And you're just like, well, and it's so clever to like not to hide behind the fact that it's sci-fi and it takes place in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain things that you don't have to explain, that the reader will just go with it.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
how they says, like, the surgeons put me back together. It's like, well, this is the future, so I'm not going to read into that because the
Right.
author's not taking any time to read into that.
Yeah.
So it's just the future. Like, he's on this, like, ridiculously futuristic blimp,
Mm-hmm.
so why wouldn't the surgery be crazy futuristic? And
Yeah.
so the end of the story, like, you find out that he's, like a 7-foot tall mecha man.
Yeah.
And, like... so that's another thing, dude. So during the story, we'll get into plot details, but... During the story, I want to talk to you because I haven't talked to you about it.
Yeah.
Whenever it said that he looked up,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so you're in this place where it's enormous pressure, like not anywhere near being habitable for humans. And what are you looking through glass?
Mm-hmm.
But no, he like is the machine.
Yeah.
So he must just have cameras like pointing up
Yeah.
or something. And
Yeah, I
he
would
can
think
just
so.
access whichever one that he wants
Yeah.
at any time because he's basically like half man, half machine.
Yeah. Like he's like tapped in
Yeah.
to his pod.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you give a plot description or something? I like how he finally did something with the chimps after a whole novel of Rendezvous with Rama and never did anything with the exact same concept. Even calls them super chimps.
Yeah. So the plot is, I mean, at its base, it's simple. He is the captain of this, it's like the biggest vehicle ever created. It was like a quarter of a mile long.
Yeah,
It's not-
he
it's
called
like-
it 3/10 of a mile.
Yeah, that's right. It's like huge. And it's like they're preparing for the maiden voyage. And so everyone's like bustling around, getting everything ready. And but it's making like a little journey, like a
Right.
test.
It's over the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. And they're meeting. Like there's like a little like rendezvous with a platform, and they have to like join. Like they have to like join up, and something goes wrong, and the platform goes like flying through the ship and like destroys the ship. And so it crashes, and then it's kind of like fast forward to the journey to Jupiter.
Right. But he has a moment while it's crashing, I remember.
Yeah.
Because he mentions that they're the super chimps that work. They're like biologically enhanced chimpanzees, I guess, that are kind of like trained to help humans.
Right.
And he explains that they're between two worlds.
Yeah.
That they're like not chimps anymore, but they're not human.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just like really trainable chimps.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing like manual labor building this thing. And he has a moment where he's like in the elevator shaft.
Yeah.
Where he comes face to face with a terrified chimp. Because like
Yeah.
the chimps don't understand what's going on, but they realize that this thing is crashing.
Yeah, like there's danger, something's
Right.
bad's happening.
But he has that moment where he comes face to face with the chimp and he sees like the fear in the chimp's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's like the moment where it just cuts. And then you're on to
it goes
the
through
next
like,
chapter.
oh yeah, I loved the end, how that was described, how it's like he made his way back to like the captain's chair, and because he's gonna like land it the best he can,
Right.
given the circumstances, although he knows it's gonna crash.
Right.
And then remember it describes it like it's like the ship like crushed around him like a vice.
Right.
It was so cool. So it's
Yeah.
like he just like smashed from like top and bottom.
Yeah, and then so then go ahead. You can go on. The next part, dude, reminded me of 9 Billion Names of God. Remember how that story opens with the guy
Right, they're
explaining
like
like
talking.
He's like, so why do you want to go do this?
Right.
And then he has to like justify it. It reminded me
Right.
of 9 Billion Names of God.
And it's funny because that part, so in that small part, it's him and like a friend talking about how he wants to go and explore the atmosphere of Jupiter.
Right.
Right. And it was almost like you're right, like the way that they're like talking. It's interesting. I didn't think about it then, but I'm thinking about it now, that I want to go back and read that part, because now knowing what I know at the end of the
Right.
story,
Yes.
it would be interesting to read that again and see what I missed, what like clues I might have missed.
Yeah.
Because the ending came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah, not until the whole thing is broken up into 8 parts.
Yeah.
And yeah, part 8 is just
Like the big reveal.
yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah. Especially because like I read the whole thing and then I had to stop to do a work thing.
Yeah.
And chapter 8 was the only part I hadn't
Oh,
read.
weird.
So I took like a 2-hour break.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, let me just finish this. Like it was already amazing. I was like, let me just
wow.
get through the last part. And then I
Right.
read that last part and I was like, wow,
Whoa.
that was incredible.
Yeah. So then they do go to Jupiter, and it's like he communicates the whole time with like a main ship.
Yeah, the mothership he calls it.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to Vera Farmiga
Right.
in source code.
Yeah, because it's like none of the story takes place on that ship, because it starts with him in the pod ready to like
Descend.
dive down into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then like everything after that is all about like what goes on in the atmosphere.
Right. And I think it's important to emphasize one of the reasons I think the story works so well is that like Clarke does what he always does really well, which is explain things that are real.
Yeah.
So there's all these descriptions about Jupiter that are real.
Yeah.
Like the size of Jupiter, the pressure, like how the atmosphere works as far as we know, especially as far as we knew back in the 70s.
And like all the elements and
Yeah.
like the layers and
So and he writes that stuff well. So while you're reading it, you're like, it doesn't have to be crazy, trippy sci-fi. It's because if a person were to go explore Jupiter and not find aliens, that alone would be amazing.
absolutely.
So all that, you're just caught up in all that.
Yeah.
And then he finds the crazy shit that he finds.
So that was a really fun thing, because I have been, and we've talked about it, I've been like let down on the alien element so often that I by no means thought this story would have legit alien life in it. I by no means saw that coming.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I really didn't.
I've definitely read this. I didn't remember it at all,
Yeah.
but I had read it and I knew that there was like going to be big ass
Yeah.
jellyfish, but not to the detail that
Yeah.
I knew there was something
It was-
like that.
Yeah, it was just like, it's like, I mean, as soon as like they like teased at it, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. They're going to find life surviving in this like weird like realm where like nothing on this earth could like permanently live.
Right.
And like it was just like, and part of me thought like maybe like it was going to be like he was going to end up like going all the way down and like seeing like what, like maybe he was going to like under the dense cloud cover was actually like a totally normal planet. Like I thought maybe we were going there or
Okay.
something. And then, but then for it to be like, it sounds weird to say real, but like it is real. Like if that's what you're like I should trust Clarke that like you can't go to the center of Jupiter.
Yeah.
Like he says, like, you can't do that. Like, we know, science knows enough that you can't do that. So, like, what can you explore? The cool atmosphere in between.
Yeah, especially
like
if you're
clouds,
especially if you're not really a human.
Right. So it's like, it was just like really a neat concept.
Yeah.
To not be like walking on a planet, but in the sky.
I mean,
of a planet.
There are 4 gas giants.
Yeah.
Like,
so who's to say there isn't life on those?
And they're the biggest ones.
And it's weird because we don't think about that would even be a possibility. But it's absolutely just as plausible that there be life there as there would be on Mars.
Yeah. I like
crazy.
it. I like at the end how he mentions, which seems not like what Clarke normally likes to say, that like maybe humans should stay on Earth and the moon. You know?
Oh yeah.
Because like flesh and blood humans can't handle it out there, so you shouldn't even try.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's kind of like what I say.
Yeah.
You know, like some of the earlier stuff that we read, how, you know, we're creating all these like fabulous, wonderful, full-fledged cities and living to be, you know, 200 years old and whatnot. But the reality is we do not belong in space.
Right. It's like, it's like what's happening right now with these billionaires who are going to space.
Yeah.
They're literally going to 60 miles above sea level.
Yeah.
That's like, on the one hand, you want to be an optimist and be like, space flight, yes.
Right.
Space exploration, yes. But they're only getting attention because they're billionaires.
Right.
And they're civilians.
Yes.
They're not government employees.
Right.
So, and I've been like, I don't know. It's weird. I wish Clarke was alive to comment on what's happening right now.
100%.
Because, you know, I agree with what people say, and I want to talk about this for a minute. Like, I agree with what people say, that it's like you can boil it down to like a soundbite. You know, like the guy who literally killed bookstores now is going to space, and he's getting like all this media attention that's like largely positive, you know, like I get that on the one hand, but I feel like people will complain about anything.
Yeah.
And I imagine that if the head of Amazon sent some random person into space for the first time, I feel like people would complain that the king in his high chair was sending the peasants up to potentially die.
Yeah, nobody can win.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, on the one hand, like, I get it, but on the other hand, I just think that, I don't know, it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
But what is in my opinion undeniable is that, bro, you're going 60 miles above sea level. You're not in space, okay?
Yeah.
You experienced 111 seconds of weightlessness. Like, that's not, in 1969 we landed on the moon.
Yeah.
So what are you exactly saying?
Yeah. So my take is simply because, like, I don't care about any of that crap. Like, I'm not going to judge them for, like, what you just said, whether they go or they send someone out. Like, I think it's just really cool that people are seeing, especially young people, are seeing that the path to space isn't only through NASA.
Right.
So that's really neat. You know, I think it's a revival of interest.
Yes.
I think what they themselves are doing is not nearly as interesting as what they're going to inspire other people to do.
I agree. And the thing is, you need a first step.
Totally.
Like, the first steps occurred, which are cool. I mean, I know there's skepticism about them and whatever, but like, it's like you kind of needed the big money and like the public interest to do it initially. And now it's these private people. And I don't know. I wish I could like be, I wish I could know like what is the actual what's the word I'm looking for? Not reason. The actual impulse, or what word am I looking for?
Impetus, like drive?
Impetus, yes. To do this.
Yeah.
Like, is it...
Yeah.
Like in the boardroom when they discuss whether or not to put funds toward building rockets, like are they saying like,
yes,
so that we can make money off of this from just commercial flights up to suborbital, or are you actually trying to like put the first step toward colonizing another planet?
Right.
Which, good or bad, like that's at least ambitious.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to think about it.
And I mean, we've made so many steps like towards like continuing the process of exploration and normalizing space and space travel, that it's a shame that for so long we weren't like excited about it as a people. So I think just the excitement and the idea, like the ambition, the possibilities, I think are really exciting.
Yes.
But I do agree, I'd love to know the reasons.
And like, I'll be the first to admit that people are impossible to please, because I think on one of the billionaires is like, we're definitely going to colonize Mars. And I'm like, hold on, bro. Like you don't, that's too ambitious,
right?
But then at the other, and the same, I'm also like 60 miles, big deal.
Right.
So it's weird. Like, I think, I don't know. Someone needs to figure out like a legitimate reason to do these things.
Yeah.
So, and I don't have the answer. I just, maybe it's just going to be like an eternal struggle where like sci-fi authors imagine this world where like it all worked out and we're doing it.
Right.
And we live in this world where it's not even close yet.
Yeah.
But we're kind of like dipping our toes in. So you have to just figure out like, what is the reason?
Yeah. Because nobody's interested in that middle ground.
Yeah.
But that could be the part that takes the longest. That's the hardest to navigate. That's, I don't know.
When there's like a reason that everyone like recognizes and sees, it's like, like a space race. It's like, well, that's the reason we're racing to get there and do it first.
Yeah.
Same thing like doing anything for the first time. It's like, we're just doing it to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome. And it's like what they say in the story where he's like, what's your reason for going? He goes, because it's there.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. And it's, I don't know. It's the same attitude of like exploring Antarctica the first time or going to the top of Mount Everest. Mm-hmm. Like someone has to do it first. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the story.
This story, I know we talk a lot about how we'd love to see Clarke's works made into movies.
Oh.
But listen, this story, for some reason, even when I was imagining it in my mind, maybe I'm coming off a Rick Veitch high, but I want to see this animated. Wouldn't this story be amazing as animation?
Well, I will say that if you were to, this story is so crazy and out there that you can't make it a conventional blockbuster movie,
right?
Which would require the money and the special effects that usually go into blockbuster movies with mass appeal.
Yeah.
So what I thought of, I didn't necessarily think of animation, but do you remember the movie Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow?
Oh,
with Jude Law?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, like 2003.
Yeah.
So that movie was filmed like entirely with green screens, and the CGI, all the backgrounds and stuff are highly stylized.
Yes.
Not meant to look real at all.
Yes.
It's like alternate, like noir future thing. So that's what I pictured. I literally pictured that movie, and I was like, it would have to have some kind of weird visual angle.
Absolutely.
To it.
And I think that would actually work really well for this, just with the whole blimp thing in the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I also because I pictured like especially like I pictured like colors, even though he doesn't like talk about it that much, but like the visuals, like the colors and the lights and everything, it would have to be just incredible when you did it. And I don't necessarily know if you could do it like you just said in a regular blockbuster movie.
Yeah. And I think you could pull off the reveal that he's part machine. Like, I think you could
you'd
hint
have
towards
to,
it.
right.
I think what they would have to do would be like because this might not be accurate, but I picture him like as a normal person from the waist up, but his body is like not just like robot legs, but like attached to the floor or something. Like a thing with like hydraulics on it and shit.
Yes.
So I feel like if you filmed it, like you'd film the crash, and you'd film him like waking up in a hospital,
right?
And you would just film him from the waist up, and then at the very end of the movie, you would see that he has no legs, and that he's like literally attached to the pod.
Yeah, it's funny that you just said that because that in my mind reading it, that's how I envisioned it. I never imagined him like I imagined it like very close quarters. So like everything that he's doing is within his reach. Yeah. So that would totally
work. You could
work.
almost film it the way they filmed Tony Stark in the Iron Man suit. How it's just his face and there's all like the lights around his face, you know? Something similar to that.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
But man, it really is like so much untapped potential for movies with Clarke, not just like the big ones.
I know.
I don't get like why. I just don't get why people aren't.
I know.
About it. I mean, Interstellar was I think widely accepted as a good movie,
right? And
made money, you know, and that's very Clarke-esque.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So, and I noticed too that like I kept thinking like. They keep saying like the gravity is very ultra high where he is, like, but it never describes him like is he free floating within that ship that he's in? Like, it's never explained. So in my mind, I'm like, what's going on here? But then at the end, it's like it doesn't matter. He's like a machine. Yeah. So within Jupiter, he starts like descending, and I love how he's in there for like 3 days. Yeah. And it's like, you see all this amazing shit. And then, like, the final line of one of the chapters, it was like, and he still had a full day to go. Yeah. Like, you're like, damn, like, that's not that much time. But look at all these crazy things he's seen in just 2 days.
I know. It was fun, the cycle of the light, like the night and day. So it's like, he, you know, like you can imagine it becoming dusk and kind of like how it is with our clouds and our sunsets and stuff. But then like you'd have to wait until the morning to like get a better picture of what was around you. And then like you might be in a different place.
It would be like actually horrifying to be where he was at night. If it was pitch black and you're like, there are 300-meter long manta rays around me. Yeah. No thanks.
I know.
And bioluminescence.
Yeah.
So he finds aliens. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not aliens. He's the alien. Yeah. He finds life on Jupiter, which he describes as black arrowheads that have a wingspan of, I think he says 300 meters, right?
That's huge.
Well, yeah. So is Jupiter. Yeah. You can fit 2 Earths, so it says, in the Great Red Spot. So yeah, he thinks that they're not intelligent because they kind of fly around and float around like randomly. And then he also sees snow, what he says look like snowflakes, but then he determines that they're like bubbles made out of like semi-hard wax.
Yeah, it's like a waxy substance.
And then he sees like a mountain.
Yeah, that's like describes as like foamy.
Yeah, like a foamy mountain, and he thinks there's something on it that he thinks looks like a tree, like tree trunks. Right. Which then he finds out later is Medusa. Yes. So he finds himself in a maelstrom, like a whirlpool of like basically a storm. Yeah. Like a tornado or a hurricane, except, you know, like really, really, really big. Like a hurricane the size of China. Yes. Or bigger. I don't even know. And he sees the jellyfish. He describes as jellyfish. Yeah. How big are they?
Wait, the jellyfish?
Well, the Medusa.
Oh, yeah. They're huge. But there's a bunch of them. That's right. They're huge.
Yeah, forget. They're like...
Because they're way bigger than the manta ray creatures.
Yeah, he describes it as like the manta rays would be like a parasitic fish on a whale.
Yes.
And the Medusa would be like as big as the whale compared to the 300-meter long manta rays.
I will say that scale and distance was very difficult for me in this.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about things that are so much bigger than you could possibly imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little weird to think like, well, but he also like addresses that the character sees what he sees in his mind because he's trained to be on Earth.
Right.
He says looks a certain distance, and then in reality,
it's not.
It's actually like hundreds of times further away.
Yeah. Like that's.
But like the sphere that you're on is so much bigger that everything's going to be proportionate to that, I guess.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm having a hard time imagining.
We're also we're not giving this story like the proper. It is so much better than what we're explaining, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's almost like what we talked about with stories with no words.
Yeah.
Even though this story is full of words, it's so visual.
Exactly. All of the descriptors are describing what this guy is seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he sees like the bioluminescence, which is kind of cool.
Right.
And then he describes those geysers, which aren't totally explored, but they're kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then, so then he witnesses what he claims to be clear predatory behavior from the manta rays.
Yeah.
Because they fly in a V formation and like attack the jellyfish.
Yeah.
The Medusa. And the Medusa starts to lose altitude, like it looks like it's going down, but then it like electrocutes them.
Yeah. And
it's really cool. It's amazing.
Yeah, and there's like he talks about like the radio waves and the electricity and like
I don't think it's not even electricity. It attacks them with like a radio burst of sound or something.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because it's like you can tell that Clarke is combining like the real things we know with utter imagination, like how it could be possible.
Yeah. Which
is just so fascinating.
Yeah, and you just get a sense too, and like he hints at that there's other things going on here, like because he wonders like why are the Medusa like kind of evenly spaced around this maelstrom? Like why are they going along with it?
Yeah.
And he says, well, they're probably like feeding on whatever else is trapped in this thing.
Yeah.
But they're not trapped. I think they're just riding it.
Right. And then most importantly, because there's some discussion about intelligence and stuff, is that the Medusa gets curious.
Right. Yeah, there's
and
all the...
reaches out.
Yeah, there's all the prime directive stuff.
Right.
How it's like... you
that was
cannot,
fascinating.
Yeah, like the rules of space explorations that you cannot approach anything unless it shows intelligence or unless it shows curiosity about you.
Yeah, I think you have to let it come to you. So that stuff was really interesting. The prime directive was so neat, like how he just sort of had to observe until there was a point where you could figure out what its intentions were, maybe.
Right.
But then, isn't that kind of like, I did get that feeling like I was getting like cut off, because then he just has to like jet out of there.
Right. Yeah, that part was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in order to escape it, he has to go low.
Yeah.
Toward what is established as a threshold beyond which he won't be able to escape.
Right.
So he has 5 seconds to like get himself out.
Yeah.
Without disturbing the Medusa.
Right.
And he does so, and then it cuts, and then you get to the last chapter.
Yeah.
Which then explains, that he's a machine, that he's like a 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
Like half man, half machine, and that's why he's able to do these things.
Exactly.
And he's found like his place in the world or in the solar system.
That was also fascinating how the friend was there at the end to say like how he's changed.
What do you mean?
Remember he says he started using we.
Oh yeah. Yes, because that's when you start to realize.
Yes, meaning that class of creature that's not man and not machine, but a combination.
Yeah.
And then there's something about how he'll go where he's needed, because like he has certain things now that like only he can do them.
Yeah, and then this is source code. Like,
right.
The reason Jake Gyllenhaal's character is he's the perfect candidate because he was in a helicopter crash. And if it wasn't for source code, he would be dead.
Oh, right.
Like, they're keeping him alive.
Yeah.
He's like, he doesn't even have a body below his ribs because they show it for 1 second. And it's so
that now.
horrifying.
Yeah.
And dude, if you're listening to this, hopefully you turned it off and you watched source code. Because one of the best parts about source code, I remember sitting there in the theater. I remember thinking like Jake Gyllenhaal. It came out at a time where it's like I don't care about Jake Gyllenhaal like before he became like what he is now, which is like in like really good movies. Mm-hmm. And I just remember like action movies, sci-fi, Jake Gyllenhaal. Like I don't know what the fuck this movie's about based on the trailers. But then 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, all right, what's this all about?
There's something to it.
So then I went to see it in the theater with Dad. And I remember sitting there. So one of the most fun things about that movie is like, where is Jake Gyllenhaal's character? Like, I thought he was in space because there's this moment where the capsule that he's in gets really cold.
Right.
And he's like, what's going on? Like, why is it so freezing in here?
Right.
And there's just like all this like frantic running around where Vera Farmiga is. She's like, oh, something, we're losing him. And like, so I remember thinking, like, he's probably in space. Like, I figured this movie out. I bet he's in space. Nope. He's half a body. And that thing that he's in is just in his brain. It's in his mind.
Isn't that wild?
It's such a good movie, dude.
So
such
wild.
A good movie. And that's it. I remember the remake of RoboCop. There's a moment where do you know what the story is?
I know nothing about it.
He's a totally human cop.
Yeah.
And he gets like some kind of like situation chasing criminals, doing his job, where he ends up being mutilated.
Oh.
And wakes up and like the majority of him is machine.
Yeah.
Except for like his face. But he's like humanoid machine. Not I don't think like this book.
Yeah.
So the moment in the remake, and Gary Oldman, amazing actor, is like the scientist guy, the doctor who like turned him into this RoboCop. So he's the one who wakes him up and basically is like, okay, listen, dude, like you need to be prepared for what you are.
Right.
It's like that mental preparation.
Yeah.
And that scene is amazing, dude. That scene, like, it's it's just like an action movie, but that whole thing, like the sci-fi where they get into, is really good. And I just remember that, like, finally it zooms out, and he's just like a face, and he has like, I think he has like flesh lungs, and they're like in like a glass chest cavity,
Lord.
and you're just like, oh,
whoa.
And it's like the first time where it hits you, like the mental, like what that would do to you if you woke up and realized you don't have a body.
That's what's so fascinating. At the end of this story, it's like I was just reviewing a couple of the sentences, how it's almost like, looking back, he went through that horrible situation on the blimp, thought it was all over, thought it was lost. Obviously not. He's pieced back together. Then the friend is like, well, what are you going to do now? Okay, like, I think you're nuts, but, you know. And then he goes and he does it, and then the friend is like, he's found his purpose.
Right.
So it's like the underlying deeper meaning to this story is exactly what you just said.
It's like
a man's coming to terms with who he's become.
Yeah, and recovering from like trauma and realizing that your life is not going to be the way it was before whatever accident happened to you.
Right.
It's a truly amazing story, and we give Clarke a lot of grief for his characters, but like he was a total fully fleshed out character.
Yes, absolutely.
Without flesh, which is so cool.
And also without, it's almost like in Shadow in the Cloud, how they did so much of that movie. It was just her in the bubble talking on the intercom. It's kind of how I felt like this movie. I mean, this book, the story was as well. Like, you get such a sense of who he is just by reading the dialogue between him and the mothership.
Right.
You know, like, you don't really know anything about him, but you get like a feeling for who he is.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that story was amazing.
Totally awesome.
And definitely would make an amazing movie. But wait, I'm trying to remember, what's like the first hint that he's not a normal human in the beginning? Like, it's something to do with his fingers, that he can do something that other people can't do. I think it's with his fingers.
I don't see, when you said that, that didn't ring a bell to me at all. It must have gone right past
There is a part
me.
where it mentions that he can't laugh, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's something. It's the whatever comes before that.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember, where it's like maybe he like signing his name or something. That, like, he couldn't do that. I can't remember.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, and it's cool. I mean, that's in the collection that we read and we didn't necessarily like.
Yeah, you're
so
right.
If I were to have bought that collection,
yeah,
and that's the last story, I would have got through all that stuff that's just mediocre.
Right.
And then I would have read that last story. And like I said, that story is sold as a book on its own. I've seen it. So that is just, amazing.
Yeah, you're right. So a lot of those stories were not.
And he just capped it off with that amazing.
Totally.
Yeah. So, you want to talk about the movie?
Yeah.
Actually, can I tell you real quick about a book I just started?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I've always wanted to read it, and I'm finally reading it.
Uh-huh.
It's World War Z.
Ah.
Because as I've mentioned, you know this, is that I'm taking a month off of Arthur C. Clarke because I have content scheduled out beyond when I'm done with my month off. So I'm going to take this time to, like, regroup and read something else. Which, at the same time, man, this restored my love for Clarke.
That's so good.
Way more than Rendezvous with Rama did.
That's so good.
So, but anyway, I'm not far at all. So I'll just give you, like, what I feel about it so far. Do you know anything about World War Z?
I watched the movie. Didn't I watch
the movie? Is not as...
It's fast-moving zombies.
Barely.
Fast.
It has almost nothing to do with...
They go really, really fast.
Yeah, and they're all, like, CGI. Yeah. And it's a PG-13 zombie movie. Please, Hollywood, whoever's listening, never ever make a PG-13 zombie movie. It's just not. It's not a thing.
What's the point?
Yeah, dude.
Doesn't it have like a really, really boring ending?
Well, that movie was in development hell for a long time, and it went through a lot of endings. That's why why there's some really famous characters that have bit parts.
Really?
Because they were, or famous actors who have bit parts because they were supposed to be bigger. So, well, the whole point. Yeah, the whole point of the movie. What?
Time out. I wanted to tell you this.
What?
I don't think I talked to you about this.
What?
But speaking of zombies and bit parts and stuff like that, remember how we watched, what was the zombie movie we watched?
Oh, Day of the Dead.
Yeah. Did you know that all of Tig Notaro's parts were added after?
Yeah.
That is amazing. We talked so much about how friggin' fabulous she was.
Right.
Come to find out, she wasn't in the room with any of those people.
Yeah, didn't they have to replace some actor?
Yeah, they had to replace an actor.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, it's just wild that, like, she, in my opinion, was, like, the star of that film.
Right.
And A, she wasn't supposed to be in it, and B, she did all of that on her own.
Yeah, and it's funny because, well, I think that I was told after we did the recording.
Yeah,
like, I don't
but
think
we
I
didn't
knew.
talk about it. Yeah, I read it somewhere.
I think Heather told me, or
really?
somebody told me.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, World War Z.
Yeah. So, the ending is that...
Does it have to do with medicine?
Well, the whole thing... Yeah, dude, it's just a dumb concept, dude. It's that... So, like... Brad Pitt realizes that there are some people who the zombies don't even look at. They don't even acknowledge that there's a human.
Yeah, okay.
So they run like around it.
Right.
And he finds out that those people have like incurable diseases, and the zombies can sense that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
If it's like a virus,
and like logically, it makes sense.
So, but the way he saves humanity is by giving them all incurable diseases. So it's kind of just like, dude, that's a rock and a hard place.
Definitely.
Which I would assume, if that's how it is in the book, I would assume it's more interestingly
right, fleshed out, written, whatever.
And
but
that movie's full of amazing, like, epic scenes, amazing CGI, and the final scene is Brad Pitt sneaking around a lab, and then he's in a room, and then he gives himself like some kind of disease, and then walks out fine. Yeah,
unfortunately, it's like of all it's memorable. I'm remembering these things. I don't know why, but I just wanted to.
It's a fun movie.
Yeah, that's
just
like the
on.
feeling I remember.
And it has a massive budget, so it's
huge.
It is visually pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
how's the book? Sorry.
Okay, so the book is just so it's not a novel. It's written like as if this event actually happened, and it's a journalist who then. It's like he talks about that it was a decade-long conflict between humans and zombies.
Yeah.
And the humans won. So it's like he went around after the humans won, when the world's kind of restored and rebuilding, talking to all the key people.
Interesting.
And like interviewing them.
Wow.
So it's not like there's almost no prose in it. It's like interviews and stuff. And it's really cool, dude. The way it opens has an introduction in the character's voice, the main character, where he basically explains that he had to do this anyway. It was his job. Mm-hmm. And then when he went to his boss, like the head of the United Nations or something like that, she was like, "You got to take out all this humanity shit. Like this is a report on what happened. We need numbers. We need statistics. So get rid of all the human touches, like all the emotion. We don't need that." And so, but she goes, "But legally, all the research you did." You can do whatever you want with it. So that's like the point of the book is that to like tell the human story of how all these people survived and what they went through and shit.
Okay, that's neat.
Oh, it's and like, I'm only 20 pages in, but it's so good.
That's awesome.
And dude, it's written by Max Brooks. Do you know who that is?
No, no idea.
Mel Brooks' kid.
Really?
Yeah, the Spaceballs guy. Yogurt.
Oh my gosh.
May the Schwartz be with you. So anyway. He's just a talented dude. But anyway.
Wow.
So it opens with like the doctor a doctor in China who finds out that like there's just some horrible disease in this little tiny village. So he goes there and he just like it just tells a story about zombies with like people who don't know anything about zombies. So it's just like there are like 6 people who have all been bitten and all have it. And it's just cool the way to describe it. Like you go into a coma before you become a zombie. And so it's like and it's obviously so relevant to today because no one knows that, like, you and I know that you kill a zombie by shooting it in the head, by destroying the brain or removing the head.
Right.
And you turn into a zombie by being bit by a zombie. So we all know that. Yeah. But if you don't know about zombies, and you wouldn't know that.
Right.
So no one will go near anyone who's been bit, even though they're not zombies yet because they haven't died. You know what I'm saying? They haven't turned, so they can't bite. They won't bite you,
right?
Because they're not flesh eaters yet,
right?
So everyone's so terrified of these people, like stay away, quarantine.
Yeah.
But then he finds patient 0, which is a little kid.
Oh.
He's like a 12-year-old kid, and he's acting like a zombie. He's the one who bit the 6 people before they tied him up.
Oh.
And so like they have him in this room, and then he gets the 2 biggest dudes in the village to hold the kid down while he's trying to. And like nobody wants to go anywhere near him. Like he's cursed.
Yeah.
So they're holding him down, and the kid, he's got his arms pinned, and the kid gets up anyway, and his arm just comes right off.
Oh.
Like the bone just rips through the skin. And he explains, too, how he's like, he can't find a pulse. The kid's skin is as cold as the cement that he's laying on. And it's just so scary, dude. And then, again, I don't even know if any of this is true, because it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
And it explains that the kid claimed that he got it because they were diving, and he got bit while he was underwater on his foot. Huh. So it's like, where did it come from?
Yeah.
And even all that's explained, like, it's all this politics shit. Like, this village only exists because it was right next to a river, and the Chinese built some dam or whatever that flooded the river. So that their old village is underwater now.
Did you say you're 20 pages in? This is fascinating.
Dude, I haven't even got... Okay, so then the next part, and this is the last part because this is all I've read, is he's talking to a guy who's smuggling people out of countries that were having outbreaks.
Oh.
And they explain, he's like, and he explains, like, it got to a point where, like, couldn't do it anymore just because then we found out, like, what this thing actually was. And, like, family members would be, like, taking people over borders illegally. And it was just cool because they were like, because, like, you knew that your family member was infected because they got bitten.
Right.
But they didn't know how it worked, dude. So they have people in boxes, and they made a point to say that they stuck infected people in boxes with air holes. And then he made the point to be like, air holes. Can you imagine? They had no idea what they were dealing with. Like, they thought that they needed oxygen.
Oh,
they're fucking the living dead, dude.
Lord.
And it's just all these horrifying things. And, like, dude, and then they explained that there was, like, a boat that was, like, taking people. Boats would be smuggling people. And, like, if the boat got overrun with infected, they would throw them overboard. But the zombies, like, didn't need to breathe, so they would climb out of the beach.
Oh,
and then,
Lord.
like, just run amok on whatever town was on the beach.
Oh, my gosh.
It's amazing.
Wow.
So I can't wait to keep going in that.
Yeah. Have you ever read a zombie book before?
No.
Because now that I'm thinking about it, I never have either. And because you're giving me, like, all this, like, crazy insight.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't get from any visual stuff.
No.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Now I want to read a zombie book.
He keeps referencing Flight 575. It's with, like, smuggling.
Yeah.
He's like, well, smuggling was going fine until Flight 575 happened. And it's like, what the fuck was that?
I'm sure you're going to get to it,
I
right?
know, right?
Oh, boy.
And then it's like has like cliffhanger endings. Like the smuggler guy was like talking about some horrible thing, and the interviewer's like, and where was that bus going? And he says Kazakhstan or something.
Yeah.
Like the next chapter is like Kazakhstan.
Ooh.
Like then you're gonna find out what happened there.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Totally awesome.
Yeah, I've always wanted to read it, but I've just never read it. And then I bought it recently, so yeah, now I'm gonna read it. Anyway.
Well, speaking of horrible, horrible things.
Yeah. So, yeah, the movie we watched, because we're on a Stanley Kubrick kick, and it's technically science fiction. Yeah. Is A Clockwork Orange, which I did watch it when I was in college. Mm-hmm. I think probably because I discovered 2001, and I was like, this is cool. Right. So then I watched A Clockwork Orange, and you said it's your favorite movie ever. Yeah. And I don't know. What do you think? I have like constructive criticism for it. I'm not just going to sit here and be like, I don't like it. Yeah. I think there are reasons why I don't like it. Yeah. And I think, do you want to talk first, or do you want me to talk?
No, you can talk, because I'm just going to sing it praise. I love it.
Okay. My main issue with it is that he's disgusting. He's despicable. I hate the main character. Yeah. But I don't know what normal people in that future act like. So I have nothing, and I'm not British. So I have nothing to, like, compare his behavior to. Like, I don't know why he is like that and why they like ultraviolence. Like, and his family is so fucking weird, but, like, that's just, like, I just don't get why he is like that. Because I don't live in Britain, so I would assume that it's a take on British society at the time, which is the 60s. Just kind of put in the future, the near future. So I just don't know what to compare it to. Like, I think everything about that movie is weird. Yeah.
The whole thing is bizarre.
And wait, and did I hear correctly that the car was a 1995?
Is that what they said?
I think so. So that's supposed to kind of give you, like, it's supposed to be like 30 to maybe 40 years in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I've always just looked at it like disenfranchised youth. I mean, every generation has those angry, bored, disgruntled, damn the man, I'm not going to school, like that kind of thing. Only he's obviously next level. I mean, he's a sociopath, so those exist everywhere.
Right.
I mean, you don't, like, nothing had to have happened to him. I think he's just born that way.
It's like in The Shining, like, Jack Nicholson's character in the beginning sticks out like a sore thumb. You're like, there's something wrong with this dude. He's not he is ill at ease.
Yeah.
But everything is weird in this movie. So I don't it doesn't feel poignant to me or something. Like I feel like sci-fi needs to say something about like society. I realize how fucking vague that sounds.
Yeah.
But it's like he does belong in prison.
Right.
I'm glad he got caught.
Well, right.
I don't like him at all.
Yeah.
And I don't like watching him do anything with his little Mick Jagger hair. I'm like, get out of here, dude.
Oh my God. I mean, he's supposed to be despicable, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like people like him.
Well, I like him too because I like the performance.
Right.
I love Malcolm McDowell. His performance is unbelievably good. See, like I feel like you're like looking at like him and his character is the same. But like I see a performance and like a really, really good one.
I guess like I don't know what British people were like in the 60s and the 70s. I don't know what British society was like in the 60s and 70s. So like I have no way to gauge the shock value of the way he's acting.
I mean, I think it's just the violence we're talking about. Like what?
Yeah.
I mean, because the rest of it's like weird. I mean, it's
like
supposed to be.
It's like hypersexual too. Like that is weird too. And like that wasn't that like isn't that like a product of like the 60s being all like I don't know. It just feels like it's a fucking weird movie. I don't know. My favorite part is when they're driving the car though, for sure.
Yeah, totally.
And they go under the fucking tractor
Yes.
trailer. I was like,
Yes.
dude, this is hilarious.
Yeah, but like,
why don't they get caught, dude? Like, they only get caught because he gets bamboozled by his own crew.
Right.
It should be easy to catch these fucking idiots.
Well, it has been in the past. So like that's that whole meeting with the teacher, like, not his teacher. I always think it's his teacher.
The guy who drinks the fucking.
Yes. Oh my God.
I was like, no.
Yes, I know. He drinks the denture water.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Everyone in this fucking society is a fucking idiot.
Yes.
So, no wonder people are raping and pillaging.
But not everybody is, just he is. Him and his buddies and the rival gang.
So they should have just been.
I mean,
caught
remember they
earlier,
went to the.
dude.
No, but see, that's the thing is that where we meet him in his journey of juvenile delinquency, we're like at the end. I mean, he murders somebody. That's the end.
Yeah.
So we've not been privy to the whole beginning of his career. So he has been caught. That's his like parole officer or whatever, like his juvenile, support, whatever they're called. Like
it's more impactful if it's like normal law-breaking shenanigans, not rape. That and then which then becomes, oops, I accidentally killed someone. Like, I get that dynamic of, like, I just feel like it works better if it really is, although illegal, fun and games until someone gets murdered. But it's illegal and you're a fucking despicable person and you rape people and you break into their homes. Oh, and then you murder someone and it's like, oh, now I have to go to jail because I murdered someone. You should have been in jail so long ago, dude.
But it's like the escalation. I mean, that's like typical escalation.
I feel like what he does in the house with the guy and the woman is worse than murder. So it's not an escalation in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think like criminally, it's an escalation.
Right.
You go from doing that horrible stuff to taking someone's life. It's like a progression. I'm pretty sure if you look up like how people are punished based on their crimes, murder is way higher than rape.
Right.
Or breaking and entering or whatever.
I will say that movie, I don't like watching rape in movies.
Nobody does.
I know. But, like, I will say that that movie left a very bad taste in my mouth back when I watched it when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I will say this time watching it, I do appreciate that, like, the horrific hooligan shenanigans is over pretty quick.
Right.
Like, the majority of the movie is his fucked up rehabilitation.
Exactly, because that
I do appreciate
that is the true point
of
the movie. not the beginning stuff. That's shock value.
Okay, yeah, and I just think that like there's also just this thing where I just feel like Kubrick, like, if you do superfluous space shit, that's one thing. If you do superfluous horror shit, like at the end of The Shining with the pig face,
Yeah.
but if you do superfluous sex and murder, it's like, all right, I get it. And it's like the scene, like the fast motion scene that's all one shot when he has sex with those two girls. Like, that's cool.
That's funny.
But the subject matter, I'm like, are these girls stupid? Like, why did they? Is he just like?
Well, it's because he's a sociopath.
Okay,
So
I get it,
he is completely normal to some people,
right,
and a complete and utter monster to others.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
Like he's not an anomaly. Like, people like this exist.
Yeah, but I think I don't know if
no.
they get caught. I feel like they get caught. And they don't do things that are that horrible.
You think that we've caught all the serial killers? You think we've caught all the serial rapists?
I mean,
no.
Okay, yeah.
We have
I guess
not.
I just don't know. You're
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Like, people, and even like different levels of, narcissists and sociopaths and, psychopaths and all kind, they walk among us.
True.
We take for granted that the majority of human beings are quote unquote normal.
Right.
But it's just because there are so many of us that you don't run into these other people often. And it goes like there's a I recently was thinking deeply about Yukio Mishima, who Japanese novelist who was gay but was growing up in post-war Japan where that wasn't a good thing. You shouldn't, So his first novel is called Confessions of a Mask. And it's about a 5-year-old realizing that he's gay. And also realizing that all the people around him, his family, are not okay with that. Right.
So it's take away the homosexuality, it's like society is a certain way and expects you to be a certain way. And if you're not that way, then you have to put on a mask.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So. But I mean, that's like, so that's like, it's weird because one of the scenes that I really like, I have a hard time saying I like it because it's an attempted rape, right? But from a pure filmmaking point of view, it's so well choreographed.
Which one?
When they're on the stage. When it's Billy Boy or whatever and his... Yeah. Like, it's so well choreographed. Everything about that entire scene when they, starting from what you see on the stage and how everyone's moving to when they walk in and then they start fighting. Like, it's disgusting, but it's very well crafted.
I guess I just get confused when I watch that movie because, like, they're going to rape her, and then those 4 guys, like, save her.
Yeah.
But they would have done it, too.
Right. But their interest at that moment is to get in a fight.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, the real point of the movie is scarier than anything that kid could do to any of his victims. And that is when the government takes away your choice.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
I get all that. That's standard shit. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. How the guy's like, I mean, it's spelled out perfectly. How he's like, well, you've taken away like his morality. He's like, we're not interested in morality. We're interested in reducing crime.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I get it. Like, that's like, you don't care. Like, that's what a prison is. You're not interested
Right.
in rehabilitating these people. You're taking them out of society so that
Yeah.
they don't do the things that they did to get them in there in the first place. You know what I mean?
It's that
This
whole...
is all debatable, but it's like pretty clear that rehabilitation is not best done via whatever goes on in prisons.
Right, because there's the difference between rehabilitation and punishment. And it's like,
Right.
how do you weigh those two things? Because it's like,
And
you should be punished for what you did, or should you? But you should be punished for what you did. But should the punishment be enough, or should we also reform you?
right. And is the point that, like, I don't know, actually.
Well, it keeps going too. So it's interesting how he becomes like a victim of this system of what's going on, politically or whatever. And then, you come to find out, like, when he meets his friends who have taken jobs as police officers.
Which is better.
Right, but it's also just like, it's like shows that, like, some people can fit in and other people cannot.
Yeah, which is why, like, just someone like him, I don't think deserves anything. Because
No.
he can't, like, I don't care that his choice was taken away. Because what else are you going to do with someone like that? So if you had done it to someone who wasn't a fucking sociopath, then, I don't know, the whole thing would just be more, I would just be more into it.
No, but then you have to start thinking about, what do we do with these people that don't fit into the society that we created?
Well, if they want to rape and kill, then there's certainly something needs to be done.
Okay, but someone could also say that
They want to
morality
rape and
is
kill because of us.
constructed,
Right.
So this is the thing, like, there's so much, and then also at the end, how he becomes a pawn. So
Again,
it looks like
that's clear cut. I get that.
Yeah, and it looks like the old man who's been crippled and his wife has killed herself because of this guy puts aside his own personal shit to use him. Like, he doesn't do that to him because he doesn't make him try to kill himself because of his personal vendetta. He does it to put the government in its place.
Okay.
But then the government steps in and uses him again as a pawn, so now he's wandering around unfixed, unreformed. What's he going to get up to?
Yeah, more of the same.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also think, depending on, like, what your poison is, what you like,
Mm-hmm.
Kubrick movies are just fucking boring if you're not interested in what you're watching.
I can see that.
Like, the ending, like, I just got so sick of looking at him. I just got so sick of it, dude. And, like, I literally at one point paused, like, I think he had gotten out, and I paused, and it was like,
Yeah.
I still had like 45 minutes. I was like, damn, dude.
I felt like some parts of his performances were very reminiscent of Jack Nicholson, like in the oddness and intensity. And I wonder if that's Kubrick, like if that's his influence, that he gets these performances out of these people.
Well, there was one, I remember I told you I'd watched a bunch of like behind the scenes stuff about Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
And Vincent D'Onofrio mentioned that there was one part when he's sitting on the bleachers,
Mm-hmm.
like when he's kind of turning into the crazy militant person, where he was like, I had seen Kubrick's other movies, so when he took the camera and he put it up and made me look down and look,
He knew exactly
he
what
was,
it was.
He was like, oh, I get what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because I've seen this before.
Yeah.
In Kubrick movies.
Right. That was also interesting. I noticed, remember I said my favorite part, one of my favorite shots in The Shining was when the camera's underneath
Right.
him. Well, he uses the same technique in this movie as well. There were a few shots like that.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what is it about that? They're so powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, like the juxtaposition with all the music. I mean, like...
Yeah, I didn't realize that is just a Kubrick thing.
Yeah.
Like I was reading about some movie and it was like, this is like Kubrick's other movies because of the ironic use of music.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it in 2001, but it is, I mean, that's just become so iconic that you don't realize that it's actually ironic.
Right.
To put classical music
right
over high-tech space shit.
Right.
Yeah, so...
And then he does the same thing in this.
And I didn't realize...
futuristic electronic symphonies
right.
over rape and murder.
Yes. I definitely appreciated it more this time watching it. Maybe I just wasn't like ready when I was younger.
Yeah.
Wait, there's one thing, and I forgot like how much music has to do with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucked up when he was like screaming like not Beethoven,
I know.
like when he was watching those horrible things.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like collateral damage. It's like a representation of collateral damage. Like some things are positive and get destroyed when you like sweepingly get rid of the bad.
And interestingly enough, I didn't know this, but I read this, that what happens to Alex, right? Technically happened with the music, technically happens to us as the viewer with the song Singing in the Rain.
Right.
You take this wonderful, happy, fabulous song that everyone associates with a beautiful scene in a wonderful film.
Right, right.
And suddenly we can't stand to listen to it because all we can think about is the horrible things that this guy did.
Yeah.
So it, like, I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes. Wait, there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, yeah. I looked up the plot of the book, and it's very similar. So part of me kind of made me realize that, like, oh, this isn't some gross thing that they were trying to make. It's an adaptation of something that was a lot like what you end up having to watch visually.
Yeah.
And I also didn't realize that the final shot is him on the ground.
Yeah.
Because he looks like a girl. So when I saw that at the very end, I thought that was two women. Not until I read the plot of the book and like I was reading about it, I was like, oh, that's him having sex and people applauding it.
Right.
I thought it was just a gratuitous thing that he liked.
Yeah.
But no, it was him.
And it harkens back to one of my favorite parts is when he's studying the good book, and it cuts to the scenes of how he sees himself in the Bible and how he could have fit in. Like, come on. That's the other thing is that I think you have to remember. It's hard to remember, but it's a satire. It's a black comedic look.
And
like, so it's supposed to be funny.
But do you know what, in my opinion, is much more successful in that film at doing that? Is the most successful aspect?
What?
Is the militaristic prison guy.
Yes.
When he's sitting in the audience and like the naked lady comes out and he's like, and anything that goes and then someone does a speech about how horrible prisons are.
Right.
And the look on his face is like, whoa, I didn't sign up for this.
He was incredible.
He's the best part of the movie.
He's so good.
And I feel like I think he's more poignant than because less time is spent on him, so it's more to the point.
Right.
Whereas with Alex, it's just like let's show you amazing filming techniques while we also show you horrific human behavior.
Right.
Which confuses me.
I will totally agree. I think a lot of the beginning stuff is gratuitous, right?
I don't think that movie I think that movie would be canceled if it came out today. Really, I do.
100%. It would be so canceled. But I think so that's what I'm saying is that the beginning part is overly gratuitous. I think that we think you remember it as the main part of the movie because of that. When really it's not. And it doesn't even take up that much time.
It really doesn't.
It feels like it's longer because you're horrified.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you're right. If it was done today, it would have to be done differently.
And someone said, I read online that it was given an X rating initially when it came out.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I can see that. And I don't necessarily know if it was important to do all of that, but it's there.
Yeah.
And it made an impact.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, like you said, if you can get past that, it only gets better from there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, like that guy is fantastic when he drops him off at the science center place, you know, like for the treatment, science center, hospital. And he drops him off, and like just a look in his face, and then he's like, "Are you not going to have someone over here to take charge of the prisoner?" And like, and everyone else is just like, "Ha ha ha!" Like, it's going to be totally different here, and like, it's just great. Like the whole that stuff is just wild.
Do you notice who plays his dad?
Who is that?
You didn't notice?
He looked familiar. He looked familiar.
Dude.
He looked familiar.
It's Grady.
No way.
That's Grady.
I knew he looked familiar.
Right? That guy's a good actor too.
Yes.
Especially because Grady doesn't have a British accent, and that dude is like very British. He's like a bumbling British ding dong.
I thought Grady did have a British accent.
Oh, did he?
I'm pretty sure he did.
Why would a British person be taking care of the Overlook in the 20s?
He definitely did. He definitely did.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah, so, and the book, see, it's funny. When I found out that the book came with a glossary, like a dictionary for the language, I was like, yeah, no. But it's funny, watching this, I was surprised at how much I remembered and, like, understood. Like, to the point where I was like, what was it like to not know what they were talking about? So I'd be interested to read the book now. I feel like I could take it on, you know?
Do it.
Because I would really like to know how these things were amplified by Kubrick.
Right, yeah.
Especially you telling me that they're very similar. Although I did also read that Anthony Burgess did not like the movie.
It's probably tonally quite different.
Probably.
The one scene I read that was just a plot description of the book was the scene where he's on that stage.
Yeah.
It's like identical to the movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's your favorite movie, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not judging.
I mean,
I'm just
I just like I have to stand by that. I just think that it, like, for me, it has everything that, like, a film needs. It makes you think deeply and hard about the world around you and about the possibility of a future where our right to free will is taken away. Our right to make choices is taken away.
Yeah.
Because, listen, if it happens to him, if it happens to the worst of us, it could happen to the best of us. Suddenly, you start doing that before it's like Minority Report. You start doing that before people even become,
yeah.
And then you just take it all away, and then we're all just zombies taking pills, and we got 3 letters and 4 numbers.
Yeah. Like THX.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really what it is it's probably, I was thinking about it. It's probably the first film that really made me think.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And at the same time, my eyes were wide open. No pun intended.
Jesus.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going.
So I have to stand by it.
I have no problem with that. Why? When did you see it? What age do you think you were?
I would have been young.
I'm trying to think
of
the
early high school.
I'm trying to think.
I would have had to have been.
Like, what movie did I watch that was like the first movie that really made me think?
Yeah.
I've wanted to mention this on the podcast, actually, and let's end with this.
Yeah.
That I don't like how much I swear. I say the F word a lot.
Yeah.
And it'll have to do with movies that make you think. I remember when I was younger, I don't know how old I was, but Mom was like, Jared, you have to see the movie Reservoir Dogs because it'll change your life.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know who Quentin Tarantino was at the time. I must have been like maybe 13, or something.
Yeah.
Because Mom didn't let me watch bad movies, but if it was
Right.
good or whatever.
Oh, same here. Yep, same here.
So
Yep.
I remember we had it on DVD,
Mm-hmm.
and we watched it, and I was like, yeah, that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, this is just a crazy memory that I have. Afterwards, that came with special features, so we were watching special features.
Yeah.
And it was just an interview with Quentin Tarantino, and he's just dropping F-bombs.
Oh, yeah.
And Mom literally goes, Jared, talking like that is not cool. It was like a lesson. It was like a lesson.
Oh.
It was like, I'm going to drop some knowledge on you as my child.
Yeah.
Like, Jared, don't talk like that.
Yeah.
When you grow up. And that's probably why she didn't want me to watch movies like that. Because she knew it would turn me into what I am now. I'm being serious, dude. At the time, I was like, yeah, but he's cool.
Right.
And now I'm like, but that's not actually cool.
Right. Yeah.
So I got to work on it. But I'm old now. So it's like, will it ever change? I don't know.
I don't know.
So, yeah. You should totally show people dope movies, but I don't know.
Well, you should talk about them after, which is what, you know what I mean? It's what we do. It's what Mom was doing. You talk about them after.
Yeah. And I don't swear to, strangers. It's just people I'm comfortable with.
Right.
I just fall into my,
right.
brain speech patterns.
Yeah, I know.
Which are informed by ding-dongs like Quentin Tarantino.
Exactly.
So, he gets a pass because he's a genius.
Yeah.
I don't get a pass. I'm just a guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, anyway. So if you have not read that story...
Meeting with Medusa?
Yes, if you have not read A Meeting with Medusa, you 100% should read it.
100%.
It's one of Clarke's best short stories.
So good.
So good. And yes, you should watch challenging movies and talk about them. And if you don't like them, give it 10 years and watch them again. And you'll maybe not like them, but appreciate them more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. That about wraps it up.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Space Dreamers, a Sue Madre production. See you next time.